Well, the Gang of Six, or the so-called Gang of Six in Senate, back at the table as we speak. They're trying to hammer out details of their version of a much-anticipated health care reform bill. NBC's Capitol Hill correspondent Kelly O'Donnell live for us at the Russell Rotunda with the details. Hi, Kelly.
Good morning, Dylan. The Gang of Six is hard at work, and one of the big questions is when will they come out with their plan and how bipartisan, if at all, will it be? Well, we expect to see the actual text of what they've been working on for so many months, probably by tomorrow. And will it be bipartisan? Well, the chairman, Max Baucus, says he believes that it can be, even though so far the three Republicans who've been part of the negotiations have not publicly signed on. Now, Max Baucus says that he believes in the coming days, when there are opportunities for members to add their own changes, to discuss things in a larger group than the Gang of Six, there will be chances then to try to attract Republican support. But so far that has not happened publicly. Now, part of what they say is bipartisan is some of the work they've been doing behind closed doors addresses some concerns that have been raised by Republicans and some moderate Democrats. Issues like the cost. So far, we're hearing that they've been able to bring the overall cost down a bit to about $880 billion. That's sort of within the range the president is looking for. And they've been dealing with some of the hot button issues, like how to make certain that illegal immigrants would not benefit, or to keep federal money away from providing for abortions. Also, one of the concerns many Republicans have is how to reduce the number of malpractice suits, which they argue increases the overall cost of health care. So it's complex, it's dense, and it's hard work. And we expect to get more details today, but it's been so incremental, Dylan. Each little piece of new information is something everyone is analyzing, and then you get a whole new set of complaints or people coming forward to support it. So we hope to have more, but it's still so contentious.
Kelly, the hot button issue that strikes me as the biggest one is the ongoing efforts inside of the health insurance industry to deny 200 million Americans choice. So while we're distracted by the conversation about a wide variety of understandable minorities, 200 million people in this country are still denied choice under the Obama version of things, under the Baucus version of things, under any major piece of legislation. No one who is currently on an employer-based health care system will have the right to leave that system and participate in a free market. That is not a government takeover. That is a government protection of industry at the expense of the American people. I want to bring in our panel to discuss just that. Joining Vicki and Jonathan is Ezra Klein. And Ezra, before we get into this conversation, I'd like to hear directly from Senator Ron Wyden on the biggest hot button issue, which is the false choices and lack of competition that continues to persist in our health insurance reform dialogue. Take a listen to the senator.
You hear everyone talking on Capitol Hill about choice, but then when I bring up 200 million people aren't going to get it, everybody has an excuse for the status quo. What we have to do is hold insurance companies accountable, but let's also hold politicians accountable who say they're for choice and then write bills that don't provide it.
Ezra.
The bad guys here are the politicians, not the insurers. On this particular one, the bad guys may usually be the insurers, but the politicians are terrified, right? Because if you allow people to leave employer-based insurance, two things are going to happen. One, the employers are going to want them out because they know perfectly well at the end of the day they shouldn't be providing health care to people. And number two, they're going to want to leave. So you're going to get CBO saying, oh, in this bill, 120 million Americans will not have the insurance they had when they started it, and the Republicans will attack, and there will go.
But they will have let's stop, but forget, I don't care about the politics. This is so stupid.
It's
ultimately
insane.
There's a situation where we could create a set of rules that creates choices for everybody if they to sort of complete the president's sentence from the other night, and the key part that was left off, which was this. He said, if you like the plan you have, you can keep it. He did not say, if you do not like the plan you have, you can change and go to the national exchange where there is an open marketplace of the best health insurance plans in the world. He did not say that. And whether it's Senator Ron Wyden's point or anybody else's, those who would argue that this is a government takeover are ultimately lying to you, because the reality is this is a government protectionism of an industry from free market competition and fair choice, Vicki Ward. This is not the British plan that we're talking about. This is talking about America's lack of balls to actually step forward and create an open, competitive marketplace that is truly capitalist to deliver health care to the American people.
Agreed. Well, as a mother who just had my new health insurance turned down when I took my twin sons to their doctor for their checkup,
How many choices do you have?
One, and it's been rejected. So great, that's really helpful.
I have one choice as well.
Yeah.
I mean, most people in America are in that group of 200 million, and Jonathan Capehart, no one talks about that. We talk about illegals. We talk about abortion. We talk about the rich people have this, poor people have that.
Right.
But the reality is none of us in the middle of this conversation, the vast majority of the taxpayers, the vast majority of Americans are being served any real choices. There's some statistics for you. WellPoint and United Health. 67 million people. 36% of the market controlled by two companies. And you're telling me this is a competitive marketplace, Jonathan?
Dylan, I want to ask the question. Maybe Ezra can answer this question. You know, the Republicans have been saying all along that they want some kind of provision in the health care reform bill that would allow insurance policies to be taken across state lines. And I'm just wondering, one, is that even viable in the health care negotiations? And two, what would that answer Dylan's very true question and Senator Wyden's true question about providing choices to the 200 million Americans who right now don't have choice?
Sure. So it's not really viable, and it wouldn't answer Dylan's question. We'd create a healthcare system sort of like the credit card market, where everybody bases in South Dakota because they have no regulations. It would just create a race to the bottom. What you'd want is federal regulation, which I haven't heard brought up, but would be a good idea. What would answer Dylan's concern, and I agree with him, mine, is Wyden's free choice amendment. What it would basically allow is that if you were in an employer, you could tell your employer, listen, thank you for what you're offering me, but I want to take this voucher for the same amount of money you're going to give me to have your health care insurance, or even a little bit less money, 65% of the lowest cost plan, and I'm going to take that to the exchange and get the thing I want. Now that has attracted some interest. It's certainly got a lot of constituents among commentators, but it hasn't gotten much into the bills, and it's not been brought up by Baucus or any of the real players there, but it is on the table. It's not like a whole new bill. It's not the Healthy Americans Act. You could just add it in. It would be a small change, and it would fix this problem entirely.
And it would create market forces. In other words, if we claim to be a free market country, a free market is many choices, and then the customer gets to choose. If you do not have the right to do what Ezra just described, you have a false choice, you have an oligopoly, you have anything but capitalism. You have corporate theft.
And background noise, which is all this is.
Yes.
Lots of noise.
And spitball fights.
Yeah.
Enough with the spitball fights. Give us real choice. Let's take care of the 200 million people, and then we'll talk about everything else.
Votes will beat money. Money will beat a vacuum. If my colleagues don't hear from the citizens, then money will win. But if they hear from the average citizen, we can beat the big money, so I hope they'll call in.
So how do you get involved? How do you make your mark? The first step, heed the call to action. Understand that there are aggressive people flying on airplanes to Washington, D.C. to make sure the status quo stays. So go to Dylan.msnbc.com. You can email your congressperson. You can email me. You can Twitter me at twitter.com. Yes, I'm going to start Twittering now. Arianna Huffington and so many others are very aggressive in their efforts to try to make sure this communication goes to Washington.